What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about 3 things that I think will make Star Wars Outlaws successful. This is a game with quite a division, I think, amongst fans, and I think that's fair. So I thought, well, let's put together a video. I want to kind of highlight 3 areas that I think the game is going to need to excel at in order to make it good, and then if it doesn't excel at these 3 things, then we can debate when the game comes out. So let me know what you think about this idea just in general in the comments. I can do these videos more often with different games, and we'll take it from there, okay? So the first thing, it's kind of an ambiguous statement, but then I'll go into more detail, is capture the feel of being a bounty hunter. Now, again, that is ambiguous. What do I actually mean by that? Well, I'm talking actually about a couple of things. Reputation system, and that's something that there was interviews back when, they were showing it off more during that E3 type period, and, they talk about the star system, or their own star system, and this is going to be a thing where, like, you're going to attract the Empire's attention, and as you get higher, and as you get, like, full notorious, kind of rating, right, like, what's going to come after you, it's going to be something kind of cool. We don't really know what it is. People have theorized, does Darth Vader, does an Inquisitor probably makes more sense, right? Do they literally send a freaking Inquisitor after you just because you broke the law so many times in the open world? So, that's one part of it, but making you feel, right, like a bounty hunter. When you're a bounty hunter, you're not always going to be good. You're going to be breaking laws or breaking things, as you probably should, and that's just kind of one part to it. I guess in line with that, I also wrote that, I write everything down. I'm too old for this job. I wrote dynamics, right, being a dynamic type game. So, this has the feel of, you do something controversial in the world, you break a law, something happens because of it, right? But you can also apply this to the factions, which they've talked about, right? When you're making a decision for one thing, you're going to block out something else. Now, not necessarily, they've gone into a little bit more detail where there might not be like a literal decision that just completely screws you over, right, with an opposite faction, but the things you do in this game have repercussions, right? You might end up getting more like buddy-buddy with one faction in general and not so much with another. So again, that kind of dynamic feeling of you do an action and there's a consequence for that action. I'd also like to throw in just different vehicles, like in terms of feeling, again, like you're a bounty hunter. You're not always going to be on foot, so you're going to be moving around, and how is that going to feel? It looks cool. And we've gotten actually a different look at different vehicles in this game. I like how the space combat looks. It looks pretty cool. I'm not a big negative person, I guess, in terms of the landing animation. It's somewhat similar to Starfield, but I would say maybe even taking that one next step where, you're going through clouds, and the clouds is clearly the loading screen, But it's got a type of, hey, you want to land somewhere? Well, we're going to let you see the whole animation of, you flying from beginning to end without, we don't have the technology to do it seamlessly, so we'll get as close as we can. Or, speeder bikes, things like that. But also, I would like to throw in gadgets and, your skill set and how you kind of level that stuff up. Bounty hunters, and you think about, kind of getting more elite and getting more powerful in a game where you are like this, right? You're going to unlock different abilities. You're going to unlock different gadgets just in general. That's going to make you feel cooler, right? And that's something we've seen a little bit in the gameplay kind of segments where she's actually fighting, right? But that's something that I think, again, in terms of the whole point of this video, this is something that they need to pull off. If you're not feeling like this, if the game doesn't have a responsiveness, if the game doesn't feel, again, in terms of what you're doing and it has a consequence, or it even gives you those options, right, in the first place, if it's not having that, it's not being very successful at it. So second part, and I would apply this probably for most games, but if we're just talking about this game, is avoid repetition. Or in another way of actually saying this, something that I always talk about is quality versus quantity. Now, they've talked about the length of time in this game, so this one I feel so far so good, but it's not completely proven yet, right? Obviously, the game needs to come out, but for me, and again, I've said this so many times, but it applies for this game, it applies for Ubisoft games, it has to be an example of, if you have 30 side missions, they all need to be as strong as possible, right? If you're having 30 side missions and 6 of them are strong and 24 of them are repetitive, then you failed. And I would say that for a lot of, even my game of the year this year is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I think it largely failed failed at side things. Now, it did a lot of stuff good with Queen's Blood and other stuff, but, there was a lot of just fetch type things that go to the towers, right? Over and over and over, and collectibles that have a little bit, of enhancement to the game, but not too much, just that repetition. And that's quantity, because there's so many of them, over the quality. So going back to Star Wars and going back to the Ubisoft formula, right? It's got to be about the quality. And they've talked about it. Like, this is going to be a game of exploration. It's not going to be a game where you go on the map and you see like 5,000 question marks. This is a game that's like 25, 30, 35 hours. This isn't a 60, 70, 80 hour game. Now, it can become that if you make it that, right? But in terms of what they're shooting for, it's not that long. What they've said has sounded very positive. You know what I mean? So this is one out of the three that I feel pretty okay or pretty positive on. At the same time, you can have a game that's 30 hours and 5 are good and 25 are bad. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You could versus a 60-hour game and 45 hours are bad, 15 are good. So to me, it doesn't really matter the length, or I'll give them a little bit of credit that the game's shorter, but that shorter length can still have a lot of fluff to it. So it really depends on how the actual quality of the game is. And then this one is kind of a pretty direct one. Like, I don't even know how much you got to go into it, and could also apply to a lot of games, but this one's also important. Story and characters. If you're in an open world game, right, you think about a lot of the best open world games, and there is a feeling of, responsiveness or, just quality. You think of like maybe Witcher 3, right? That's one of the big ones. And so much of that game is quality. And things can be repetitive, right? Like you can't have a 50, 60, 70-hour game without ever repeating the same quest structure, right? Like go here, do this, go there, do that. That's going to happen. But Witcher 3 had a way of making things feel very high quality. So, those are all parts of it. Again, things we talked about. But how many of these big open world games that are so good, right, that you can think of, that the story and the characters are god awful? Now, some of them don't focus on it. Say Elden Ring. Elden Ring's a pretty good example. Gameplay's king. Enemy variety is king. How you build, the sense of exploration, right? I mean, you can kind of run through what makes Elden Ring such a good game. They don't focus so much. It's a little bit more hidden. It takes a little bit more work to kind of get into the story and characters of an Elden Ring, but that's not a focus, or at least to me, I guess. I don't perceive it as one. For Star Wars Outlaws, it clearly is. You're going to be talking to a lot of characters. How else are you going to get these quests, right? So you're going to be talking to side characters. You're going to be talking to main characters. There's the entire main quest is like a heist type thing, right? So, that is pretty influential, or just pretty impactful in this game. It's got to be solid. And this is where I get probably the most worried. I feel like if I were to rank these, this is the one that I would feel least, positive on. I think there's definitely been enough that they've shown us that you can feel like a bounty hunter. So like number one, I think is reasonably checked, at least right now. The quality versus quantity type thing, I think so far they're saying the right things. This one, the story and characters can go any way. There's no guarantee that this girl is a legendary type character. In fact, you even look at the previews and the reviews of her so far have been like she's fine. She's not. There's a lot of comparisons to Han Solo, because it's like, well, you're doing a bounty hunter game. You're making her powerful. Like, we're playing as her. The comparisons to Han are going to pop up, right? So I don't super fault those, but I mean, she is a standalone character unless they try to compare them. So we'll see. I mean, Lando's in the game, and Jabba and all these other things. It really is going to depend on how she is as a character, the supporting cast, the side characters, the main story, and also, I mean, like I mentioned, Witcher, I'd say the quality of like the side stuff, because even if it's fun to play some of the side quests, if you're getting, which is good, I mean, that's probably the most important, but if you're getting all these side quests and the reasonings for doing it, or they're just fetch quests. Hey, we lost a dog. Go here, find it, bring it back. That's not quality writing. You know what I mean? That goes back to that quality versus quantity. Did you need that quest in the first place? I mean, I would really like it if these quests had value to them, whether they're main or side. So those are my three. You let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.